Hello, my name's Heather, and I'm Ann, and we're from the Pueblo Zoo, and we're here today to talk to you about naked mole rats. This species represents an exception to the rule. What does that mean? Let me give you an example. Platypuses are mammals, and generally mammals give birth to live young, but a platypus lays eggs. That's an exception to the rule. Try to think of some animals that break the rules while you take a virtual field trip around the zoo with 3 of our talented zookeepers. Afterwards, we'll have another interesting animal to show you. Enjoy the video.
Hello, I'm Ann Casey, Education Coordinator with the Pueblo Zoo, and we are so excited to be a part of the first ever virtual Cool Science Festival. Today I've asked for a little help from my friends in the zookeeper staff to introduce you to a weird and wonderful creature called the naked mole rat, a unique and rule-bending rodent that shares lots of characteristics in common with Colorado's own native rodent, the black-tailed prairie dog, but who also acts a little like a honeybee. Very unusual. Let's learn a little bit of vocabulary before we begin our virtual field trip around the Pueblo Zoo. Naked mole rats are mammals. In fact, they belong to the largest order within the class Mammalia, which is Rodentia. They're rodents, like mice and rats and beavers and porcupines. Well, you get the picture. And we all know that mammals and rodents are warm-blooded, right? Well, these little guys are not. They are thermoconformers, meaning they take on the temperature of the environment around them, kind of like reptiles do. They are also eusocial. Lots of mammals live in social groups which go by names like herds, prides, packs, etc. But the naked mole rat goes way beyond social. They are downright royal. But let's join Sue Greer, zookeeper here at the Pueblo Zoo, and let her tell us more about the unusual social life of the naked mole rat.
Hi, these are the naked mole rats. They are native to East Africa, and they live underground. So they set up burrows underneath the ground, eating roots and tubers from underneath, and they have a very unique social system. They are a rodent, like many rodents throughout the world, but they have a social system just like bees, like our native, well, not our native, our European bees. They have a queen and a hive. These guys have a queen and attendants. So the queen dominates the colony, and that one colony will defend its territory against other colonies. But they all attend the queen. They also, because they live underground, they actually can't regulate their temperature real well, so they will move up to a shallower burrow that's warmer in the sun, and or they huddle. They pile together. So in any one of these chambers, you might see a pile of naked mole rats, and or you might see them laying out on their back because they're actually heat pads under there. So a lot of times they lay up there just warming their back like they're on a heat pad. But that simulates what they can get naturally by moving around under the earth. They are hairless except for some whiskers that help with sensory, but because they live underground, they also do not see very well. They smell very well. They have a very strong sense of smell, but their eyes are very small and they're very sensitive to light. Here at the zoo, we feed them rodent blocks because they are a rodent, and also roots, fruit, vegetables like carrots and cooked yams, sometimes a little piece of carrots and greens, but also little pieces of apples and banana. They like their banana, but not too much. So we have one fairly large colony here, and at any given time you'll see them huddled in a pile, but also they have another unique weirdness. In order to be able to digest their food, they have to get bacteria and they pass bacteria along. The queen, who gets the best nutrition and gets all the attendants, has the best digestive system, and she's the most robust. And there's a hierarchy. So the next in line in the hierarchy begs for a fecal bolus from her, and that seeds his digestive system, and so on and so on. So you'll always see a little scrawny one also, and that's the one lowest on the totem pole, but they usually are just small. But that's because they need that, pass on that bacteria that helps them digest the food they're eating. There can be plenty of food, but if they can't digest it, it doesn't help. So that is our naked mole rat colony, and you might find other animals in the world that are similar to them, and we'll talk about prairie dogs that are native to North America that live underground and serve a similar purpose, but have a very different structure, and our native bee, well, our German bees that pollinate all our crops. They have that eusocial system as well, a queen and a hive.
Thank you, Sue. Now we are going to visit another family of rodents that lives here at the Pueblo Zoo. They are black-tailed prairie dogs, and their zookeeper, Brittany Merlot, is here to tell you all about them.
Hi guys, my name is Brittany Merlot. I'm a zookeeper at the Pueblo Zoo, and today we're going to be talking about black-tailed prairie dogs. So black-tailed prairie dogs are probably an animal that you've seen around on road trips or if you live near any prairies. And we kind of take them a little bit for granted. They are rodents, and I think sometimes people have a bad opinion of them, but I really want to talk to you guys today about why they're actually really cool and really important for the ecology of the prairie. So we have our own colony here. We do have about 15 individuals, and that they vary in ages from they can live up to be around 5 years old to some that we've actually had born just this spring. A prairie dog town consists of multiple different neighborhoods that are called coteries, and prairie dog towns can go for miles and miles. The biggest prairie dog town that has ever been observed was in Texas, so that's kind of a cool thing about them. These guys are rodents, like I said, so their teeth constantly grow, so they need to be chewing on things at all times. And because they live in the prairie, they actually are what keeps the grasses and the landscape so short in the prairies, because they're constantly chewing on everything and keeping that grass short. And that's actually pretty important because they kind of construct the land, and they are a keystone species, which means the land around them is affected by them and what they do. Another really important thing about them that makes them really valuable to the ecosystem is because they dig and their tunnels can go for miles and they can go deep underground, they're actually really important in stirring up the soil and aerating it, and bringing different nutrients back into it. So if we didn't have prairie dogs and other animals that buried the land or burrowed, the land and the soils would be stagnant and nutrients wouldn't move through and water wouldn't move through. So you wouldn't have a very healthy landscape, and there would be hardly any plants growing. So that's something that's actually really important about these guys. Some cool things about them are black-tailed prairie dogs are known to have at least 12 distinct calls. And scientists have observed them, and they think that they actually communicate so well with each other that they can tell each other just through their calls, like what type of predator that they see coming, if it's a bird or if it's a coyote, or even they can say there's a man with a red shirt coming. They think that their language system is actually very complicated and a lot cooler and more in depth than we actually give them credit for. So that's kind of a cool thing about them. These guys have 3 different types of burrows, like burrow openings. They have the volcano type, which is really steep. They can get up to 3 feet or higher. They have a rounded top, which those ones are also more above the ground, but they're not quite as high as the volcano type. And then there's just a type of hole that goes into the ground that doesn't have any kind of like opening around it. And they use these for different kinds of reasons. They are very, very in tune with what's around them. So they actually have lookout animals that keep an eye on what's going on around the prairie, so that they can alarm call and let everyone know in the colony what's going on and if they need to hide for cover. So they can use those really tall burrow tops to stand on and keep a lookout. They can also use those for helping to prevent flooding in their burrows. The high walls of the openings of their burrows help to keep that water out. So that's another cool thing that helps with that. These guys, very similar to naked mole rats, they are rodents, so they eat the same kinds of things, which would be like vegetables, tubers, roots, seeds, anything like that. And because of that, they also help with seed dispersal. So what that means is when they eat a plant that has seeds in it, when they poop it out, then that actually spreads the seeds around and allows the plants to grow wherever they pooped. So that's a really huge, important role that prairie dogs also play, is to make sure that plants are getting to where they need to be and where they can grow. Just like the naked mole rats, they have a very they communicate mostly through sounds and scents. So that's another thing that they're very similar to them through. These guys don't live quite as long as naked mole rats. In the wild, they probably only live to be about a year old, and that's because they are a food source for a lot of the predators on the prairie. So that's another important thing about them as well. They, along with the seed dispersal and the tilling of the ground, they are a food source for the other animals that live on the prairie. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I look forward to seeing you later.
Thank you, Brittany. Right next to the black-tailed prairie dog exhibit, we have a beautiful pollinator garden and nature play space we call Plant, Grow, Fly. Today, zookeeper Lindsay Rogers has agreed to don the protective gear she uses to check up on our European honeybees so she can tell you all about this important member of the Pueblo Zoo collection.
Hi everybody, my name is Lindsay. I'm one of the keepers here at Pueblo Zoo, and I often have the opportunity to take care of our bees here behind me. So we have 3 active hives here at the Pueblo Zoo, and our bees are not the bees that are native to North America. Our bees are European bees, and that's the most common type of bee that you will see, type of honeybee. They are now through human assistance on every continent except Antarctica. And they play a major role in our ecosystem, our agricultural systems, and everything that we do out here in the United States. Gardening, crops, everything like that. They play a major role in pollination. And they're really interesting species, and they have a lot of commonalities with a lot of other things that we've talked about today. So just like our naked mole rats, they are a eusocial species. So that means that in our hives, we have a queen bee, and under her, she has all female workers, and then she has her male drones. So all of those workers who are female, they do everything from gathering pollen. They protect the hive, they care for the larvae and the eggs that the queen lays. And none of those females have any reproductive organs whatsoever. The only female that has those are the queen bees. So she is the only one that's laying those eggs and providing that population to the hive. And the drones, who are the male bees, are the ones that provide that fertilization for those eggs and for the queen. So it's a really interesting social structure, and that queen can lay up to 2,500 eggs per day if she has enough resources. So that's a lot of eggs. It's a lot of energy to expend, so all of the other bees in that hive work really hard to make sure that the queen has those resources that they need. So they're out working hard, especially this time of year. They're getting ready for the winter. They're storing a lot of honey. So here we don't really mess with our bees. We don't collect honey from them. We let them store that for the winter and use those resources so that they can survive until spring. And when they are ready, they'll use those resources and everything like that to feed the queen, feed the larvae, and keep that hive going. So we check our hives about once a month to make sure everything is okay in there, make sure the queen is alive, she's doing her thing. And while they're out there looking for those food resources, they have a really interesting communication system. As bees go out and find food locations, they will come back and they use pheromones, which is a chemical release, to tell each other what location those food items are. And they also will employ, it's called a wiggle dance. So they'll buzz their wings, they'll wiggle their butt, and they'll do a little dance in their hive, and that lets other bees know exactly where that food resource is. So other bees can go out and get that pollen resource. It's a really interesting and cool way of communication, just like our prairie dogs and their calls to each other. So also like our naked mole rats, these guys do employ thermoregulation during the winter time especially. They can huddle together for warmth, and they will buzz their wings to maintain that temperature within the hive, to make sure that everyone is safe, that no bees are freezing to death or anything like that during the winter months. And then once everything warms up again, they can go out of that hive and keep getting those resources for their queen. During the winter here, we supplement our feeding with pollen patties that we put in there for them, and we also give them sugar water, so that gives them the resources that they need to survive the winter. But in the wild, they would be searching all over for those pollen resources, and through that they would be pollinating all types of species of wildflowers, plants, including most if not all of the agricultural products here in the United States. So these are really important here. They're a really cool animal, and thank you for learning about them a little bit. See you guys next time.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you for joining us on this virtual tour of the Pueblo Zoo. I hope you enjoyed meeting some of my friends here. During this time of coronavirus-induced challenges to our own social norms, I'm glad that Cool Science found a way to get us all together. Here at the Pueblo Zoo, we are also finding ways to connect with our audiences online. You can check out our website at pueblozoo.org for more information about visiting us in person or online. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of the festival. Thank you.
So we have one more animal to show you today, and that's one that we have within our education collection. We tend to have very small but interesting animals that we take to schools when we're able to. And so today we have our tenrec. Her name is Glory. She and her species reside in Madagascar, which is a pretty large-sized island off of the southeast coast of the continent of Africa. Madagascar has an amazing array of biodiversity, and just one of the things there are tenrec, but also lemurs that you may be more familiar with are there primarily there in Madagascar. So tenrec, you're probably wondering if they're related to hedgehogs, because they do kind of look a little like them with their quills and their size and the shape of their bodies. And they're not actually very closely related. These guys do enjoy really dry, arid climates. And they do tend to like evening a little bit more than the daytime. So while Glory here is awake, as soon as we put her back in her home, she'll fall right to sleep again. Tenrec are insectivores, and I'm going to show you, hopefully, she'll have a little insect here to snack on. We have mealworms. There she goes. Yeah. We have mealworms here for some of our animals that are insectivores, and so we are able to give them those to eat. They have little teeth, and they have an extremely good sense of smell. They do not see very well. You can see she has very tiny little eyes, And she does not enjoy super bright light. That's why she and tenrec enjoy being active when it's dark. A little bit about their bodies here. They do have these quills that are pretty spiky on their back. They kind of feel like when you run your fingers over a hairbrush. And then underneath is more furry, hairy bottom. And so if she was threatened by something, she could kind of push her quills a little bit and maybe even cross them a little. So she was less comfortable to something that may want to try and eat her. Let's see. So they're predators, things that might want to eat them. Could be snakes or birds of prey, or different like medium-sized carnivorous mammals. The exception to the rule that Glory has, as we kind of talked about some of these exceptions to the rules, and it's a part of her breeding and birth. So her anatomy is a little bit more similar to that of like a bird. And so that's kind of how the difference is there, the exception to the rule. And everyone always wants to know how long all of our animals live, which is really kind of difficult to determine. But in general, in the wild, they would live 5 to 10 years, and in captivity, they would live 13 to 19 years. And we like to remind people that animals in captivity, when given exceptional care, like here at the zoo and many other zoos around the country, they have obviously excellent vet care. They're given the best diets, and they don't have predators trying to eat them. So they're going to live a little bit longer than they would in the wild. They do like to climb. I don't know if we'll see Glory here exhibit that, but they do have little fingernail kind of claws on the ends of their feet, obviously where fingernails are. And they are very helpful in climbing. They do have pretty good hearing. Again, their sight is not good. They do have those long whiskers in front. So most of the time, animals that have whiskers, that's to help them feel around them, certainly in the dark. So they can know if there's something that they're going to bump into, or if there's something that might harm them. Let her have one more mealworm. Oh, she's hungry. Oddly enough, in terms of species breakdown and like the family and the order and all that, the tenrecs are actually more closely related to elephants than hedgehogs. So that's a pretty crazy fact. They are not considered endangered or even vulnerable on the IUCN Red List, which is what we refer to for that type of information. They do, however, live in Madagascar, which is itself, it's a pretty tough place. There's a lot of unsustainable methods of developing the land. They strip the land. They really disrupt habitats, which is unfortunately happening in many parts of the world. And so it becomes more and more difficult for animals to find safe places to live and eat and breed and, continue their species. So we're happy that we are able to have them at the zoo, and that you can see Glory here. She was born at the Smithsonian Zoo in Washington, D.C. too. I don't know if we have any questions out there, but lots of kids will ask us, do they bite? And we always say that anything with a mouth can bite. But generally, our animals are, treated extremely well, and and unless they're feeling very stressed or even not feeling well at all, they're very, very unlikely to bite. And Glory here is 3 or 4 years old, so she's young, and she'll be with us hopefully for a long time to come. We just keep removing all this stuff so you can see her cute little mug on camera. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us
Thank
at the
you so
Pueblo
much.
Zoo.